Previously on Woodworking That's Fun. We're making a gift box for my dad, but the gift doesn't fit into the box. Well, that's not good. It's too long. The pin boards, or rather the dovetail boards are too short. And the thing that's frustrating is we actually before we even made our dovetail cuts, we did a test fit and it looked like everything was going to be fine. But when we actually go on a dry run, negative Ghost Rider, it does not fit. So we're going to have to engage in some woodworking trickery here. I don't really want to plane the end grain of my gift piece. I've got that just the way that I want it. So what we're going to do is some cross grain planing of the pin boards. And the reason that we're going to use our plane rather than a planer or drum sander is because we don't want to affect the pins. So we need the pin boards, holdfasts, mallet, hold downs, battens, candle wax, and our number 4 smoothing plane. Those battens really are the star of the show here, and we'll kind of get into that now. We're going to take our workpiece, put a hold down on it, which actually are my stop blocks from my table saw or my router table. But I'll also use them as a hold down to protect the wood. That bird's mouth that is cut into the end of that batten is what makes all of this work. By affixing that bird's mouth to the corner of the piece that we are going to be planing, and then fastening that down with a hold fast, and then ensuring that the other end of the workpiece is well secure, that's all we need. The piece will plane it and it won't move at all. So we put a little candle wax on the bottom of our plane to make sure that we don't have undue friction. We start with our plane blade at the 0 or -1 or -2 mil depth to make sure that we don't gouge the side of the piece that we're planing, and then we ease our way into it. And there we go. You can see the shavings are coming off, but that workpiece is not budging an inch. And that's because of that batten with the bird's mouth cut into it. Now this is not an original idea. This is something that's been around for a very long time, unbeknownst to me, but I learned it from a woodworker in the UK on his YouTube channel. He's called the English Woodworker. Guy who's he's definitely into traditional woodworking techniques. Does not it's kind of like Tom Fidgen. He just doesn't use power in his shop. He uses planes and chisels and saws, and this is how he holds workpieces down when he has to do some cross-grain planing. And he uses a lot of very traditional planes too. He's got some metal planes, but a good deal of the planing that he does are with traditional wooden planes. So after we do our planing, we're going to do another dry fit to see if that gift piece will fit inside. I'm as nervous as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs right now. I hope this works. So we got our dry fit piece together, and viola, or voila, it does work. Fits perfectly. In fact, it's a piston fit, just about. Nice. I love it when a plan comes together. All right, time to create our sliding box top. It's going to be a cross-grain cut on some plywood. So anytime I'm doing a cross-grain cut on plywood, even though I've got a 0 clearance insert on my table saw, I like to put down a strip of masking tape or painter's tape to help prevent tear out. And let's see how we did. Oh, mission accomplished. Fantastic. All right, so there's our sliding box top, and that's roughly how it's going to work. So what we need to do is to cut a groove into the dovetail boards or the side boards, so that piece will have a slot to travel in and out of. So in order to accomplish this, we need to take a thickness measurement of our piece, which is just under 1/4 of an inch. And so I think that if we use our 1/4 of an inch router bit, we should be in good shape. And I think we will. So after the router table we go with that 1/4 of an inch bit about 1/8 of an inch proud of that false router tabletop. My router doesn't dip deep down enough into the table for me to be able to do it on the regular tabletop, so I use this false tabletop. And we're only about 1/4 of an inch in and 1/8 of an inch deep. So the groove will be very, very near the top edge of the board, but far in enough so that the piece isn't unstable. And not very, very deep, again, so that we don't create instability. And so here's our dry fit, and it looks like everything comes together quite nicely. That's the box top, as you can see. The back left and back right painter's tape on the piece facing us is upside down, so we can tell that that's actually the top. So what we're doing is scribing a line here, so that box top will have a way to actually ingress and egress from the box itself after we glue it up. So we've scored the line, and we will now head over to the table saw. Cut that piece away. Get out of here, you. All right. Got that little piece cut up, and we go for one more quick dry fit, which everything looks fan-fantastic. So time for the glue up. Just going to use regular PVA glue, regular wood glue here. But the important thing to remember, even though this piece isn't going to be under significant amounts of stress, it's not going to be yanked in about like you would a drawer or cabinetry or anything like that. It's just a storage box. But still, we want to make absolutely sure that the joints are going to be sound for years to come. And so, in order to ensure that, we want to make absolutely certain that we use plenty of wood glue. So we make sure that we put glue on the pin boards as well as the dovetail boards. And why I didn't save it for a dovetail board to be my last piece to put in, I don't know. Normally I do that. In this instance, I didn't, so I've got to put the pin board in last, which makes it trickier, but that's okay. I have opposable thumbs and all of my fingers, and so we will prevail. I don't know if you've noticed, but my glue applicator is a highly technical, very expensive piece of scrap wood. Use everything! Don't throw anything away. Well, that's not true. You got to throw some things away, but small pieces like that are good for pushing glue into small crevasses, such as dovetails. But the dovetail board actually is the toughest place to get the glue in. But lots of glue. This is taking twice as long as the other two glue ups because I've got 2 joints to glue up instead of 1. So because it's 2 instead of 1, it takes twice as long. That was algebra. I don't know if you noticed that. I just did that in my head without pencil and paper, no calculator. Didn't even use my fingers. And the glue up is nearly complete. Get everything just the way we like it, and time to clamp it. Clamp it. Ooh. Where's Ellie Mae Clampett when you need her? She was a cutie. 90% of the viewers of this don't even know what I'm talking about right now. Ellie Mae Clampett was a character in a TV show called The Beverly Hillbillies, which ran for about 10 years or so. The late 60s, early 70s, I believe. And Donna Douglas played the role of Ellie Mae Clampett, and she was the heartthrob of America at the time. That show also really gave Buddy Ebsen his big start in acting, and let's see, that show also starred Max Baird Jr., if I recall, and Granny was played by Irene Ryan. So, the Beverly Hillbillies. Check out the reruns on Nickelodeon if you like. All right, we need a little kind of a finger hole for us to be able to get a grip of that sliding box top. We've got a sacrificial piece of yellow pine underneath to avoid tear out, and mission accomplished. So let's check and see how this box top fits, or whether we're going to need to sand on the sides a little bit. And nope, fits like a glove. Just a regular glove, not a Bruno Magli glove. So now we're going to glue on a little piece of trim to the very, very end of the edge of the sliding box top so that it will look a little bit more uniform compared to the back. So we put a little bit of glue down, a couple of brad nails, making sure that we are right in the center so that the brad nails don't shoot out the side of the plywood. It's only 1/4 inch thick. Then after that, we take our flush trim saw and we saw away the excess wood from the dovetails. Normally, I do this with a plane and then finish smoothing it out with my belt sander. But because these dovetails are sitting so proud, I think partly because of the planing that we had to do in order to get the gift to fit inside of the box, because of that cross-grain planing that we did, I think it affected the fit of the dovetails a little bit. So there was a little bit more wood that was proud on those dovetails than I normally have on my dovetails. But nonetheless, the show must go on. So we cut those dovetails and pins flush, and then we come to the belt sander to sand it all smooth. There's nothing like sanding it smooth. After we're done with the sanding, we're going to put the bottom on the box, and because it's a rustic gift box, I thought it would be kind of cool just to tack on some pieces of scrap lumber as the box bottom. And so I took some yellow pine. This yellow pine has some knots in it. I made sure not to use any knots on the top part of the gift box, but down here I wasn't as worried about it. I wanted it to have a little more of a rustic look. So these are actually some pieces of yellow pine that were resawn from a Rubo style workbench that I made. And when I was milling the lumber down, these were the excess pieces. And so I hung on to them because I thought, well, I can use them for something. Well, here we are. We're using it as the bottom to our gift box. So after we get the bottom glued and tacked on, we head back over to the bandsaw, being mindful of that blade because it plays for keeps. And we're going to cut that as flush as we can get it without scratching up the sides of our box. And then we head back over to the belt sander to sand it smooth again. We don't want any splinters. So we're going to sand it smooth and kind of round the corners ever so slightly to give it a nice feel. And after we're through with the sanding, we're going to put a little bit of mineral oil and beeswax on the gift piece, and there's what she looks like. I like the way that the grain of this piece wraps around the sides of the box and how that mineral oil and beeswax just kind of enrich the grain of the wood. I especially love how the dovetails turned out, even with all of the extra planing that we had to do. They still come together very nicely. Here's how the box top slide works. Comes straight out to reveal the walnut chisel storage rack that is on the inside. I really do love how that walnut it literally jumps out at you from the very light and pale color of the yellow pine. I really like the way that this project turned out. I hope my dad likes it. I'm sure he will. Thanks for watching.